Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane, and it's the morning of Friday, the 21st of June, 2019. So here we are, summer solstice, known to some as Midsummer's Day. Well, of course, it's not. It's the start of summer. Summer rolls from now until the equinox on 21st of September. And I'd like to say it's a beautiful summer's morning, but it's not. And it's a little crisp this morning. It's a bit warmer down in the valley, but up here on the edge of the moors, it's a cool sort of 11, 12 degrees or so, and a bit of a stiff breeze. Anyway, the title of this morning's broadcast is that, as this is the summer solstice, it's time to make a commitment. Of course, commitments normally come at the start of a year, but this is, in some ways, the start of another year. So that commitment should be that we do whatever it takes for each of us to contribute to bringing about the end of the insanity that prevails right now. And that means obviously doing what we can, within the sphere of our influence, which in some cases is our immediate circle of family and friends. In others, it's a local community. In others, it's a wider community. And in others, it's global. But if everybody makes a commitment to do something to bring about the end of the insanity that is being perpetrated by those who wrongly believe themselves to be the rightful rulers, then, we might just make some progress. And of course, the most insane thing that's occurring right now in the UK is the persecution of David Noakes and Lynn Dyer. And Lynn currently has an arrest warrant out for her to take her into custody to effect the extraordinary rendition to French custody. And her alleged crime, but of course no evidence has been presented by the French, and certainly no evidence has been presented in a UK court, because the Crown Prosecution Service decided that there was no evidence. So Lynn has not been charged with anything in the UK, but apparently the French have some evidence which they haven't felt necessary to present to the British courts. They simply slap in a European arrest warrant and expect the judiciary to just bend over backwards, which is of course exactly what they've done. And this is primarily down to Judge Micheal Supperstone and Judge Michael Snow. And both of these corrupt corporate whores have ruled without any evidence that Lynn Dyer should be extradited to France. And of course, the only thing that she has done, which isn't illegal, was to work on the development of GcMAF in conjunction with Dr. Marco Ruggiero, an Italian medical academic. So that is Lynn's crime, but of course Big Pharma and its henchmen, not least the MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency, which is effectively an SS-style control gang whose sole purpose is to protect the revenue stream of Big Pharma and to make sure that certainly no effective treatment and definitely no cure for cancer ever comes to market, because the establishment use cancer, of course, to cull the population. It's already a major concern amongst those who think they're the rightful rulers that the demographics are becoming unmanageable, that the number of people in their latter years is unsustainable because they don't have the funds to pay pension and healthcare. So they just want them to pop off this mortal coil at the earliest possible opportunity. And of course, if they can't contribute to the corporatocracy by working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, 366 days a year, then they're of no use to man or beast. So they might as well be accelerated into whatever comes next. Such is the insanity of the globalist agenda. And of course, in countries like Japan, where there are apparently now more people over the age of 80 than there are under the age of 10, then, one starts to see the magnitude of the problem. But no doubt that Japan will be the next target for mass migration so that demographic can be brought about, and the Japanese culture and what's left of its economy can be finally destroyed. Well, if you are of the opinion that the persecution of David Noakes and Lynn Tyre is totally insane, then perhaps it's time to write to the Ministry of Justice and the Lord Chancellor and Lord Chief Justice is David Gauke, MP. Now, this is a Suffolk boy, educated in Ipswich originally, but he did study law at university, and he's the MP today for South Hertfordshire. Now, his constituency office, the phone number, which I'll put beneath this video, is 01923 771 781. That's 01923 771 781. So, if you feel that you want to make a phone call, then call his office and let his staff know that he is party to the perpetration of a massive injustice and outright evil by even thinking of sanctioning the extraordinary rendition of Lynn Tyre to France. And of course, you write to him at the Ministry of Justice. Of course, if you write to him at his constituency office and your letter is clearly from an address that is not part of his constituency, then he will simply pass it on to whomever the MP is for your address. So write to him at the Ministry of Justice and let it be known that it is the Ministry of Justice that you hold to account for now doing the right thing and quashing the corrupt rulings of Micheal Supperstone and Michael Snow, both of whom, of course, should be recused. Indeed, the Common Law Court has already ruled that Micheal Supperstone is guilty of abuse of public office and should be recused from his position on the bench immediately. So, obviously, the David and Lynn Noakes saga, the GcMAF saga continues, and the only saving grace here, of course, is that GcMAF is increasingly spreading into the vocabulary of a wider and wider group of people. And as I've said before, every day I get emails and messages asking to recommend a source of GcMAF. And of course, this is coming from people who have effectively been written off by the establishment, written off by the NHS, because the only treatments that they have available are chemo and radiotherapy. And if people elect not to go down that path or have exhausted the treatments, then what are they left with? Well, of course, according to the establishment, they are left to the snake oil salesman. But the real snake oil salesmen are the descendants of David Rockefeller, of course, who was the original snake oil salesman who effectively shut down all natural health care in the US as he came to the realization that pharmaceuticals were a very, very profitable byproduct of the petroleum industry. So, David and Lynn, our thoughts are very much with you. Lynn, wherever you may be, the prayers of not just this nation, but the prayers of many people throughout the world are with you. So stay safe, look after yourself, and let me assure you that we will collectively bring as much pressure as we possibly can to end this nightmare and to continue to expose the charlatans who pretend to act in the name of justice, in the name of the people, or in the name of service to humanity by calling themselves a corporation offering healthcare when nothing can be further from the truth. Meanwhile, of course, one would like to think that that could all change with the election of a new leader of the Tory party and therefore de facto Prime Minister. But of course it would be naive to do so. And now that the MP for Deutsche Bank, Sajid Javid, is out of the running, not that he ever really had a chance anyway, because he's too much up his own rear orifice, as it were, the That says volumes, doesn't it? The Syed. That's what he calls himself. Anyway, MP for Deutsche Bank only came into politics to protect the interests of the central bankers, and gave up a $3 million a year salary from Deutsche Bank to become an MP. Really? No. We all know what, of course, he was promised in terms of the revolving doors once he leaves parliamentary office. But anyway, he's not going to be the leader of the Tory party, and it's now down to the two-horse race, Boris Johnson versus Jeremy Hunt. Well, you know that if Hunt becomes MP, that's the end of the NHS, period. He wrote a book on the subject, 14 years ago now, and then, of course, was put into the role of Secretary of State for Health. What a misnomer that is. Secretary of State for Destruction of the NHS. And one can only observe that he delivered on that really remarkably, to the extent that even today some people go, what do you mean destruction of the NHS? Well, get yourself along the road to here, to Blackburn General Hospital on any day of the week, and see the conditions that the staff have to work with there. You know, my hat goes off to all the people who work in the NHS. It's underfunded, under-resourced. Some of the skills of people in positions today are severely lacking. And I make that statement literally repeating from a senior consultant in the NHS who said that basically it is a shadow of what it was a generation ago. And even my own daughter, a midwife in the NHS at Royal Berks, has literally decided that it's impossible to work in this regime in this country, and so she has taken her skills overseas, where, funnily enough, she was pretty much offered a job at every hospital she applied to. So it's sad that she has seen fit to take that step, but when the pressures are mounting and it becomes nigh on impossible to provide the care that you have been taught should be provided, and that you are under constant pressure from maintaining all the metrics to show that you have done a good job, then obviously maybe it's time to call it a day, and that's precisely what she's done. And I know that there are many other people working in the NHS today who are looking for opportunities to take their skills elsewhere because they are just not appreciated in this country. Of course, they are appreciated by the people that benefit from them, but they're not appreciated by the government. So we're paying peanuts. And, what do you expect when you pay peanuts? Well, the people in the NHS are anything but monkeys. And they are being treated as such by an establishment that shows what it really thinks of those who work the plantation, by withholding effective cures for things like cancer and then condemning them to substandard healthcare in the hospitals due to restrictions of resources. And let's not get on to the sandwiches that are sold in NHS shops, which seem to be the root cause of another problem. Anyway, so that's what you get if you get Jeremy Hunt, the ultimate conclusion of his agenda to destroy the NHS. Boris, of course, what do you get if you get Boris? You get a buffoon. And, whilst the guy is very, very entertaining, then he's not a statesman by any stretch of the imagination. And for both of them, both Boris and Jeremy have previously stated their commitment to EU military unification. So any suggestion by Boris that we're coming out of the EU at the end of October is complete tosh, because either he's lying or he's completely ignorant. And considering that when he was Foreign Secretary, he signed up to the commitment to Britain's participation in EU military unification, then he's either got a very, very short memory or he is a complete buffoon. I'll leave you to make that call. So either way, Boris or Jeremy, it's more of the same. It's more pantomime. It's more decimation of public services. It's more corporatocracy. And basically, it's more acceleration towards the care pathway if you or any one of your loved ones are unable to contribute directly to the corporatocracy. So, the options aren't that great right now. We need something to emerge, which, doesn't seem to be on the radar just yet. We need a situation where communities actually take back responsibility for what goes on in their areas and pushes central government to one side, because it is only by communities getting involved in what's occurring within their locale that they can bring about the changes that we all know we need to see. Central government wants you to simply continue to work on the basis that, but what can you do? There's nothing you can do. They're so powerful. Well, that's probably what 90% of the population will continue to believe. But, leave them alone, because that 90% aren't going to make a blind bit of difference one way or the other. They're just going to go along with whatever the status quo is. But the other 9%, because 1%, of course, are the perpetrators of this evil, but the other 9% are enormously powerful. And if we can get that 9% to actually start to reflect on what needs to be done to end this insanity, then we might just have an opportunity to leave a legacy for future generations that we can be somewhat more relaxed about than the hell that we are condemning future generations to right now. So, well, here we are, the solstice. The weather is forecast to improve briefly. Apparently one day next week up here in Lancashire, it's actually forecast to get into the mid-20s. Don't blink, that could be your summer. Because the Maunder Minimum is very much kicking in. And if you think that there are problems, a climate emergency, a la the fake Extinction Rebellion version, then you are very much mistaken. The real climate emergency is much closer than you think, and it has nothing to do with the activities of humanity. It's very much related to the Maunder Minimum, a natural occurrence which the establishment have known is coming and have worked hard to keep humanity in the dark and then blame humanity for this natural event. But this natural event may well have devastating impact on the ability to provide food for the population unless there is a real understanding of what is about to unfold and there is genuine cooperation in ensuring that we don't have the food shortages that the markets all indicate are coming. Just look at what's happening with the futures for grain. It tells a story in of itself. So, have a great weekend. Do your own research and think, what can I do to help bring an end to this insanity? I'll catch with you at 8:30 on Monday morning. You take care now.